Hi everybody, it's Marcy, and I'm here to play a little bit. I'm preparing stuff for my junk journal to get ready to make my junk journal, and I'm doing a very rustic kind of junk journal this time. And so what I've got here is some packing paper like you might get in an Amazon box or something. And of course, this paper comes all wadded up in your box. But as I was looking at it very carefully, the edges, it's perforated about every 8.5 inches. And so take some out. I try to tear it at the perforations. I've got some here where I just ripped an edge off and then I ironed it so it still has the creases in it, but I've flattened it for the time being. And then it's 30 inches long. When you spread it all out and iron it out, each section is 8.5 inches wide by 30 inches long. So I've just cut mine in half. And what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to do some stenciling on this. I'm going to need, for this journal, I'm going to need a paper ruffle and some washi tape. I'm going to start with my peeled paint and my green brush. And I'm just going to start adding some color to this thing. And when I'm done, I want to be able to cut it into strips that I can then bake my ruffle out of. And I think to part of it, I will attach double-sided tape to make my washi tape. I've got a very definite idea of what I want my journal to look like this time, which is kind of unusual for me, actually. And I'm doing this for the Dear Julie May Mayhem Junk Journal Challenge. And, but I've got a very definite idea, and so I don't have any. I've got a little bit of fabric I'm going to be using. I've got that picked out. But I knew I was going to need a paper ruffle. And I thought this might be a good way to do that. So basically, I'm just going to sort of haphazardly put designs on this and get some texture and color to it through my stenciling. And then I thought, because I'm going to do this for my paper ruffle, I thought, okay, now I'm going to move over and I'm going to use some rusty Hinge. So I've got these brushes that I use for my stenciling, and I've started having to mark them with the colors, and I don't have them marked. I don't have every one marked with its own color. I just keep them general, like one for green. Okay, and I've moved over now to some rusty Hinge. We're going to do these little frames. In a few spots. So I hope everyone's doing well today. I actually had to get out and run to my dentist's office. They've started reopening businesses here. And right after we went on lockdown or quarantine, my retainer tore. And I've been making it, I've managed to make it work all this time, but, and I was going to try to give them, they actually reopened yesterday, and I was going to try to give them a few days to kind of get settled back in. But then I noticed when I took it out this morning that if I get one more night out of it, I'll be lucky. Because it didn't tear completely away, but now that I've been using it torn for about a month, it's torn more and more, and I'm not sure how many nights I've got left. Put this over here on this edge. Okay. And I keep moving my paper around. About the time I think I'm done with this one, I see one more little spot that I'd like to have a little more of this in. All right, this is the last one. Okay. So far I've been using just my regular Distress inks. Now I've got these little flowers and some greenery that I'm actually going to use my Distress oxides, and I've got fired brick, chipped sapphire, and some bundled sage. So okay, put that with that one, that with that one. And I think because the oxide is a little more opaque, this will kind of stand on top of some of my background colors. So if my phone rings and cuts the video off, it's because my dentist is calling to let me know that my retainer is ready. It was interesting though, I mean, and I'm sure a lot of places are doing this. I didn't even go inside. The gal from the front desk, I had to call when I got there, and then once their waiting room had been cleared out, she was actually going to call me and have me come in at that point. Instead, she called me and said they have 2 doors. And she said, can you meet me by the north door and I'll just come right out to the door. That way you don't even have to come in. I thought, well, that's great. There was a gentleman that I saw that they'd called in while I was still waiting. And he was donning his, it looked like a homemade mask, but it was patriotic, red, white, and blue. I couldn't really tell, given that it was folded into a mask, but it looked like it was probably a flag, perhaps, or flag fabric. Okay. Now, kind of messed that up, but that's okay. I'll do some blue flowers as well. Yeah, that'll work. I'm assuming our thrift stores have reopened, but I haven't ventured out that way yet. I think I've mentioned before, but I fall into the very high risk category, so I'm really just kind of trying to take things slow and easy. Okay. That fired brick in the Distress ink, it's a little redder, and I don't know if it's just because it's on this paper. Came out a little pinker than I would have liked, but that's okay. I can make it work. Let's add a little greenery. wonder if I have darker green in the Distress Oxide. Not really. I just kind of recently started buying some of the Distress Oxides, and I'm finding that I love them, but I don't have just a huge selection yet. Oh, that's working pretty well. Okay. I'm also working on the cover to my journal, which, for what I'm going to try to do, is going to be quite a process. I'm hoping to get some of that videoed. For me, it's going to be quite a process. Okay. So I kind of like that. I wish my fired brick flowers were a little more red, but I don't know if I wish it enough. Let's see what I've got. Okay. By the time I make ruffle out of it and stuff, it won't be that big a deal. Okay, so got that done. So now all I want to do is I want to cut this down. How wide do I want it to be? About an inch. I need to fold this in half. How wide do I want my ruffle to be? That is the question. That would be about 1.25 inches. Let's go with that. And I'm gonna do two of them to start with. Actually, I think, because the only other thing I need to do with this is make my washi tape. So see, I think that looks pretty cool when it's cut down into strips like that. And now the pink doesn't bother, the fact that my fired brick is pinker than I wanted it to be doesn't bother me nearly as much now. Okay, so I'm going to go over to my sewing machine and sew my ruffle, and then I'll be right back to show you what I've got. Okay, I'm back, and I've got my paper ruffles made. I think here in a minute, we might come back and put some vintage photo or a little bit of walnut stain to give a little more aging, distressing to it. But before I do that, I want to go ahead and cut some of this for washi tape. And I think for my washi tape, I'll just go 1/2 inch. Yeah, that ought to work. And all I'm going to do for that is and I may need more than this, but I'm just going to do this to show you. I've got some 3/8 inch double-sided tape. So you could just cut yours to whatever size double-sided tape you needed. And try to keep it as centered as I can. Of course, I don't think my paper is quite even all the way down. All right, there we go. So now I can just leave the backing paper on there and it's ready to be cut and used for whatever I need. And let's I don't know how well vintage photo will show up on this. I may need to use my walnut stain. Yeah, that's so dark, the vintage photo isn't really gonna add much. All right. There we go. Give it just a little extra distressing along the folds and creases. And you can do the same thing on the washi tape. You could just go right along the edges. And the walnut stain is so dark, I'm just very lightly brushing it on. All right, so there you go. Now you've got some washi tape ready for your project and some paper ruffle. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that helps you out in some way. Let me know what you think. Stay safe, be healthy, happy crafting, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.